At the time of doing this video, we are on the cusp of the Olympic Games in Paris, so I thought it would be the perfect moment to have a little bit of a dabble into some French horror. So I wanted to put the French title in the thumbnail, but if you want a direct translation, it would be High Tension, and I'm relieved to say that there's a lot of it in this movie. It would have been absolutely ridiculous otherwise. So this was one of Alexandre Aja's early movies. He went on to do the Hills Have Eyes remake, the first one, and more recently a personal favourite film of mine called Crawl. I'm guessing that High Tension was one of his really early efforts, possibly even his breakout film, effectively. This was one of a whole raft of really gory films that came out in Northern Europe in the kind of mid to late noughties. Although whether that whole movement would have been such a known thing had the film Martyrs not come out, I'm not so sure. But from this observer's standpoint, having now seen Under Paris on Netflix recently, I would say the era of interesting, creative French horror filmmaking is now dead in the water. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure the French will come again, but Under Paris, really not good. So this film is about two young women. They're on their way to one of their parents' homes. I'm guessing term at college has just finished. But no sooner do they get to this countryside house that they're heading to, a serial killer turns up, bursts through the doors, starts murdering one of these girls' families, and the two girls themselves, who we've been following up to this point, they've got to get away any way they can. So we've got a kind of half chase movie, half slasher movie here. It's a very simple affair. I think, though, for most people who have seen this movie, they might think that this should have stayed a simple affair and not tried to give out one of the craziest game-changing twist you've probably ever seen in a horror movie. And I will talk about that a little bit later, but I will very clearly signpost when I'm about to go into spoilers. But long before we get to the ending, we have the beginning, and this film scores a really early point by having the killer turn up so quickly. I mean, this film just gets straight into it. There's no messing around. I mean, the girls have barely got their hairdryers out of their suitcases before this dude is on the front doorstep. Normally, in a film like this, the two main characters would at least get a day's grace. You know, they'd spend a day. They might go shopping in Nice or go and visit a winery in Bordeaux, or maybe not go anywhere, just sit around painting each other's nails and talking about boys for the afternoon so we can get to know them, and then the killer will turn up on the second night maybe, but not in La Haute Tension. No, Alexandre Aja just has the killer turn up straight away. This killer's got no patience. He just wants to get straight into it, and that's fair enough. The slasher mechanics are done very well here, so there's a couple of really well thought out gory kills, but not so many that it becomes repetitive or a film about the kill. What this mostly is the main girl hiding behind a shower curtain or a door or some shelves in a shop, and the killer's mooching around nearby, knowing that his victim is close, but he can't quite find her, kind of a thing. I was like this the first time I watched the movie. I was afraid to make a noise on my own settee in case the killer could hear it inside the TV screen, and that would make him find the girl quicker. I felt like this was an interactive movie the first time I watched it. Very effective, and the killer himself, superb. I mean, this guy just exudes terror and violence from the minute that he comes on screen. He's dressed like some kind of repairman. He's got a cap on and like a varsity ring, or maybe a ring that he's won in a fairground somewhere or an arcade. He reminds me of Mick Taylor from Wolf Creek. He's presumably just driving around the countryside in his pickup truck, being a kind of criminal of opportunity, albeit he doesn't have Mick Taylor's personality. I actually found myself filling in a little bit of his backstory, so I imagine this killer to be somebody who repairs arcade machines in countryside pubs, and he's just driving here, there and everywhere. But he has a swift one every time he repairs one of the machines. So by the end of the night, he's totally sloshed and he's ready to do some kidnapping, you know. But he's so good. He really is. The two main women, they're written quite well too. I think it was very smart of the movie to have the visitor be the main girl and not the other one, because it's the visitor who is our final girl, effectively, because the two main girls are separated for a lot of this, and we focus on just the one girl. She doesn't know the geography of the house that they start off in. She doesn't know the local area. And you can see that in her facial expressions. You can see the dilemma that she's got, not even knowing which corridor leads to what room or whatever. She obviously doesn't know the countryside or where the police station is or anything like that. She's a complete fish out of water, and you wouldn't have got that if you'd made her friend the main character, because she would have known all the hidey holes in the house if there were any. If there's a tree 100 yards away that's hollowed out that you could go and hide in, she'd know about it. So just smart writing, having the visitor be the final girl. And the locations are done very well. That they're very well thought out. They're just simple places that people would come to. You know, we spend a lot of time in the main farmhouse. There's a good sequence at a gas station. There's a part of the film that takes place at like a vegetable patch. We'd call them allotments in the UK, but just normal places that people would find very easy. There was no panic in the writer's room. There was no point halfway through writing this script where somebody thought to themselves, oh, where should we take everybody now? Oh, maybe they could find like a grate on the ground and it would lead to the sewers. At no moment where they think, or maybe they could pass like a slaughterhouse, like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, nothing like that. No outlandish places for the characters to go to. It's just all believable locales, and the film is all the better for it. I think most people will genuinely think this is a really competently put together slasher film in every way imaginable, until you get to that twist with about 15 minutes left, and then opinions will completely diverge. So if you're still here, I presume that you know what happens at the end of this. The final girl is actually the killer. Now, the first time I saw this, I think my reaction was, oh, piss off. And that's probably why I didn't check the film out again for another 15, 20 years, to be honest, even though I'd enjoyed most of it. This time around, I was a lot more thoughtful and reflective when I got to the ending. Before that, though, I thought this second watch through for me, I thought I was going to be watching it looking for all the clues as to the fact that the girl's the killer, but I found that I couldn't watch it that way, because firstly, there aren't actually that many clues, and secondly, a lot of this film doesn't make sense if you go back to it a second time. There are whole sequences that clearly could not have happened if the girl was the killer, so it just feels like you're watching a lot of dead air. So very quickly, second time around, I just started pretending that this guy, this repairman, was actually real, hence why I still talk about him as if he's a real character. And I was just enjoying the movie the same way that I did the first time, ultimately. And when I got to the ending, I just kind of came to the conclusion, you know what, I'm just going to pretend that this is an hallucination that the kidnapped girl is having, or maybe it's a dream or something like that, whatever. But the fact is, the twist doesn't actually come around until maybe the 76th or 77th minute, something like that, because I did check. So you can watch the bulk of this film just treating it like a normal slasher film, and for me, that's absolutely the best way to do it. There's a film called The Sixth Sense, very famous film. It's a really average drama film for me, where Bruce Willis just spends the bulk of his time talking to some kid. Very, very dull. But then you get the twist at the end, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that changes things somewhat. I mean, that twist elevates The Sixth Sense. It makes it into something. Otherwise, it would just be some really forgettable drama. You can't do that with Haute Tension quite so well, because this isn't some low-rent, bang-average slasher in need of a kick in the ghoulies to make it something. This is already a really good slasher film. It just needed guiding carefully to the credits so we can all give a round of applause at the end. It didn't need a kick in the ghoulies. The fact that this film has a kick in the ghoulies at the end makes it a worse film. So it's like, well, what's the point? And ultimately, the conclusion I've come to now is that I'm just going to pretend that ending is not actually trying to tell us that the girl is actually the main killer, because that doesn't work for me. If you take this film in the way that it's intended, then my favourite scene in the movie is completely nullified. So there's a scene in this where the final girl stops being chased and she starts doing the chasing. It's an amazing scene. She gets in a car, starts chasing after the guy in the truck, and at that moment she's become really empowered. I get goose flesh on my arms during this scene because it's so effective, and Muse starts playing. I'm not even a big music guy, and even I still recognise this song because it's so good, and it works with this scene absolutely brilliantly. But if we're asked to believe that she's listening to this song while she's got her own friend captured in the back, it's a completely different ball game at that point, and it doesn't work as well. So that is why, for me, how good this film is will be how you watch it. I think first time around, it's going to really knock you for six when you get to the ending, and I'm not sure you'll walk away thinking that this film is all that. But if you give it a second chance and just watch it the best way for you, which could be just to watch the film as intended, and fair enough. But for me, the main girl can't be the killer, in my head at least. And the main repair guy, he can't just turn out to be some kind of phantom menace. Oh, unwanted Star Wars reference. Cut! So normally at this point of the review, I would show you my copy of the film I've just talked about, but I don't own this one. But you know what? I'd be tempted to get a copy now for my collection. I think this movie is strong enough. So on that note, let's get to the bag of terror and see how I'm going to score it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5. I've decided to take no points off because of the ending. I've just decided that I'm not going to penalise the movie for that, because I can still enjoy it anyway. And most of this film is just the movie that I would want from this. So there you go. This is a highly recommended French slasher film. I think it's a really good one. And I guess we'll leave it there for today. Enjoy the Olympics. See you next time.